Right. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Thank you so much for being here. Nicole and I are determined to make this a very, very exciting and lively webinar. So I want to invite all of you. The chat is open. Feel free to drop your questions throughout, your comments throughout in the chat. We have a few spots where we will pause and answer those questions and open up the floor to discussion. But we have a lot to get through today, and I'm so excited to present what we have prepared. So there's a lot happening in our world right now, and I think no matter what type of knowledge work you do, that it is not uncommon for AI to be changing that in pretty dramatic ways, varying dramatic ways, depending on which industries you are in. And what I have found in my own personal use cases, as well as leading large teams, being able to determine what to automate first, that is really where the opportunity ultimately lies. So we're going to go through that today. I want to quickly introduce ourselves. I'm Travis Tallent. I have worked in digital transformation with brands like Microsoft, AT&T, PepsiCo for over 12 years. And these days, I build AI strategy inside of companies rather than handing over roadmaps. And I am so grateful to be joined by my mentor for, I think, over 15 years now, Nicole, and I will allow Nicole to intro herself.
Hi there, I'm Nicole Gravagna. I have a degree in neuroscience, but what's more relevant to this topic today is my leadership in product for at least 8 years, probably more. So I have built over 6 successful products and a couple of things that didn't really make it, but and then a lot of internal things as well. So very familiar with the concept of product management, which underpins the topic that we're talking about today. Even though you may not feel like a product person, this is now becoming something that we all do.
Yeah, love that. And two things I really just want to highlight there. Number one is there are a lot of learnings in products that fail or that don't take off or that don't get adopted. And we're going to talk about that today because what we're seeing is engineers and people who had no coding experience now have the ability to build a lot of things, and a lot of those things are really struggling to gain adoption. And we have some tricks and tips and tricks that we've learned over the years to change that. The other thing I really want to emphasize from what Nicole said is everyone is a product manager now. AI allows you to build products and automations and really raise the bar in whatever your subject matter expertise is. So we need to learn to think in terms of systems and process and file structure. And that's very different from a lot of other subject matter expertise that's out there. So that is what we are going to unpack today. But I would be remiss if I did not introduce Daynova's founding AI engineer, Annika. Annika is joining us. She has a fantastic background. She's a software engineer. She has experience in data engineering, most recently completed her master's in machine learning, emphasis with Northeastern. So yeah, without further ado, Annika, feel free to jump in and say hey.
Hey all, I'm so excited to be a part of Travis's team.
Awesome. Yeah, we're so excited to have you join Daynova, Annika. She's going to be the one to build the production grade workflows that ultimately make it out of this prioritization process. So I really want to emphasize that you all can and should drop questions in the chat. You are in a room full of experts to really bounce those ideas off of. So today, we're going to show you a ranking method for choosing your first automation, how you can ultimately predict team abandonment or automation abandonment, even on a personal level, before you begin to build. So then you can prioritize what to build over what not to build. we're going to walk through a prototype example that I have used that I think should be applicable to anyone who has meetings. And then last but not least, just some quick tips and tricks for how to scope this moving forward across an entire team. And anyone who knows me knows that I love to give more than I receive, and we are going to give you a tool that allows you to go through this prioritization framework on your own terms. So you'll be able to use this even well after today's webinar. So I want to dive into a bit of why AI projects have died. We've all heard the stats. There are stats, 95% of AI rollouts fail. And we have identified why. The reason why is because you typically have an external firm, say it's like McKinsey or Bain, come in, they produce an AI roadmap, they hand it over to leadership, and they say, go do this. Right? Well, that's not enough. And then you also have a ton of engineering shops out there that are just building very custom automations. But again, if that engineering team is not embedded in the business or understanding the operating model or the team or the tools that the team is using, those automations are going to go to waste. And then last but not least, I'm sure we've all had, AI lunch and learns that maybe inspired us in the moment, but failed to really get people motivated to retain that knowledge on an ongoing basis. So where Daynova sits in the market is we do all three of these things. Think of us like a three-legged stool. If any one of those pieces are missing, then you're going to have a failed AI rollout. And this is why we're so focused on organizational AI, what we've dubbed organizational AI. And that really allows us to leave a lasting impact. Now, anyone who has been in the corporate world and has seen products be chosen or even initiatives be chosen, it's typically chosen by whoever is loudest in the room, whatever the vendor demo said they could do and just convince an executive like, hey, this is really cool. Whatever the most visible process is, or last but not least, you get a really excited person who has done their homework on AI, has stayed up late, and then that's the thing that ultimately ends up getting produced. I experienced this. So in my last role, I was leading a team of 90, and we were on version 3 of a content brief generator. And when our analytics team got their hands on AI, I had a data analytics person reach out to me saying that they built a new content brief generator without ever having seen our old version, without ever having understood what our actual needs were for that tool. And so that would obviously fall in this fourth bucket, right? That person was just enthusiastic. They saw a blog that they could do this and they went and built it themselves. I'm here to say, like, that was unfortunately a waste of that person's time. It was so far removed from what would be workable for the team based on the tool stack that we had or the way that we operated. And so today, I really want to underline, how do we ultimately prioritize this? And it basically starts with 3 simple things, and I cannot take credit for this. Nicole is the product management brilliance behind all of this. But number 1 is it starts with a known trigger. So it has to be something that is repeatable. And then number 2, the inputs are already written down somewhere. If you can write down that decision tree, then that could be a good thing to automate. If you have a very difficult time writing down that decision tree, it's probably too soon to automate it, or you need more inputs to really understand what that looks like. And then last but not least, a person should be able to describe the output. It should be able, or that person should be able to describe what they want that tool to do in a few minutes. Nicole, anything else you wanna add in here around what makes workflows buildable?
Yeah, I think this really hits the nail on the head in terms of these aren't as complicated as people like to make them. And the complication comes down the line. Like we'll discuss the complications, but really we're talking about a trigger, inputs, outputs. And if you can define all of those in a repeatable way, you've got something that can be automated.
Yeah, so just to double click into a trigger. So a trigger can be an email lands in your inbox. A trigger can be a Slack message it lands in your DMs. It could be a monthly dashboard that appears. So any of those things that that trigger what that ultimately starts that automation is a great use case. So the examples down here that would ultimately fail the gate, number one are like strategic hiring decisions. Too much human involved in that process. It's too subjective in terms of what does the hiring manager want and the HR individual and so on and so forth. But something that passes this gate is something like inbound lead qualification or email recaps, which is the example that we're going to go over later. So think through these three steps in a big way. And with that, Nicole has a really great method for diving deeper into this.
Okay, so any of you who have ever worked in product, this should be extraordinarily familiar. But there are a couple of changes to think about when you're talking about AI automations or automations in general, internal products versus making something that you're going to sell to a customer. And so what we're dealing with here is the impact versus effort matrix. What we care about is finding, of all the things we could do with our time to automate, what is the thing that is going to be the biggest impact and the easiest thing to build and own? That's as simple as it is. However, it gets tricky when you have 50 ideas across a team saying like, this is a problem I have. No, this is a problem I have. What about this other problem? Which one should we do first? So the way to handle this is to have everyone brainstorm all the things they can think of that they want to automate, put them down somewhere, get together, and then map them on something that looks like this. So I want to talk about this matrix. If you look at the upper left-hand corner, this is where all of the goodies are going to end up. And so on the left part of the graph, the impact of automations, this is going to be, as you agree with your team, what is going to move the needle for maybe everyone? Everyone has this problem instead of just one person has this problem, or this problem costs us 3 hours a day or 3 hours a week, some amount of time that is impactful. And then on the bottom part of the graph, you can see the effort of automating. Now, this is something that if you've worked in product for a long time, you'll think about it as how many sprints does it take to build this? But now with AI or automations, internal products, the way to think about this is a little bit different. It maybe doesn't take that long to build these. The build is quick, sometimes hours, sometimes days, but maintenance might end up being a lot of work, something that someone has to keep fresh, keep iterating on, keep if there's a lot of APIs. An example would be we talked to somebody who wanted to build an automation that had 12 APIs that connected to banks. APIs that connect to banks, regulated industry APIs, can be a lot of maintenance. And so that was going to be a highly maintained automation. And so that would end up being this extreme effort of maintaining. Whereas sometimes there's almost no maintenance at all. So if you think about this, what is the impact? What is the effort of owning it? And then we plot that on the graph. Let's go to the next slide and see what this looks like in practice. So if somebody has put down their 50 ideas, and now you can see them on the right here, meeting notes, summaries, outbound target outreach, knowledge base, agenda reminder, stand-up schedule. These are all things that maybe somebody said, I want to build this thing. And then together they agree on, what is the impact to everybody? The meeting note summaries, everybody has meetings. So that ended up being a lot of impact. And it turned out it wasn't really that hard to build. So they ended up saying it was an effort of 1. And so this went over here, this impact of 4, effort of 1. Whereas at the bottom here, you can see stand-up scheduler. This was going to be something that had, only impact for the one person who had to schedule the meetings. And they only did this every so often because they were sort of automated meetings anyway, or like, just every week. And so it wasn't really going to impact very many people. And the effort was kind of high to build it. So it ended up over here in the lower right-hand corner. Does anyone have any questions about this? Is this making sense? If you've worked in product, this is going to be incredibly obvious. But if you haven't, this may be totally new to you. Please put any comments or questions in the chat if you'd like some more information. But you can see how we've only got five things here. You could have 50 and still plot them all on the same graph. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So we have a blank one, and you can see how this starts. You start listing out your projects, and then you start mapping them.
So we put this to the test with our own team, and of course there are lots of stuff you can build, but really thinking about it in this systematic way made the winners super obvious. And one of those winners was the meeting notes summary. So what this does is it reads my emails on a scheduled cadence at 7:30 a.m., 3 p.m. Every day, and identifies my Gemini meeting notes, and then creates a draft email from the meeting notes with the action items to the participants, as well as connects to my Slack Canvas to-do list with due dates and what needs to be done and all of that jazz. So we're going to walk through that, but we just want to highlight what that build ultimately does and looks like. So I'm going to walk through how that is built right now. Give me a moment to just share some different screen. Okay, so we have, if you go to scheduled, this is where, sorry, let me back up. I'm in Claude. You can also do this in ChatGPT and Gemini. They all have similar capabilities. Some have better connectors than others. I have found Claude's connectors are even better than Gemini's connectors. So within scheduled task, you can create your own. You can set it up manually. And then within this task, you can see exactly what the instructions are here. So I created this. I want you to go read my Gmail, search for notes. From there, I want you to summarize those notes. I want you to draft an email. Then I want you to log action items in my Slack Canvas. And I want you to follow these voice rules because this is how I type. This is what I sound like. So you can feed it old emails. And then all of a sudden, we have a prototype automation that can be done. So I want to show you just very briefly my Slack so you can see what this looks like in Slack. Super simple. So in Slack, you can see that anything just automatically gets logged. So I don't even have to think about this anymore. It just automatically gets logged in here. And then also in my Gmail, you can see that the email draft was already made and it's ready to send to Aaron in this case.
You're not sharing Gmail at this point.
Okay.
We don't see it.
1 sec. Here we go. So in my drafts, Claude automatically added this email, and you can see that Claude created this. I did not touch this at all. So it read my email from my meeting notes, from my call with Aaron, and then list the action items, all of that jazz. You can tweak this. You can make it your own voice. You can ask it to make the subject lines more enticing, all of that jazz. So this is a very, very simple automation. That's exactly why it ended up at the very top of that list. So I want to make sure that everyone can do this kind of simple stuff. And then once everyone within a team or an organization is doing this kind of stuff, then comes the more challenging, the more fun conversation of how do we turn this into something that an entire organization can use in a big way. So we're going to walk through that now. Once I find my Claude window again. That was a lot of switching. Thanks for bearing with me. All right. Cool.
Can I jump in here?
Please.
I feel like the oldest member of the team, this is from an old movie, The Field of Dreams, where this farmer, his farm was failing, and he kept hearing this. He was sort of having a psychotic break. Build it and they will come. Build it and they will come. And he goes nuts and he makes a baseball field in his field. And it turns into a business where people come and watch like minor league or lower than minor league baseball. But I think also it might be like ghosts playing. It was been a long time since I watched this movie, but the idea is build it and they will come does not work. You cannot expect to build an automation and have everyone just jump in and use it. Do not think that that's going to happen. The Field of Dreams is a movie. It will not work for you. So we have some solutions for you. So what we're generally seeing here is that people build maybe even a great automation, but the team doesn't adopt it. And why not? That change is hard. People will do the common thing, the thing that they're familiar with. They don't want to have to think very purposefully about every single task that they do. And so what we end up with is some design rules for automations. You have to design around the current workflow. You need to know the current workflow. Travis told a story about somebody who built an automation without knowing even how people were doing it already. And this is the wrong way to go. You have to study what the task looks like today so that you can build a bridge to tomorrow. You have to make it easier to use the automation than to avoid it. It's very easy to avoid things. So you have to think hard about how am I going to design this to literally put it in the way of someone. And there's a little bit of a joke here, but if you want somebody to eat healthier, you take the ice cream out of the ice cream container and fill it with broccoli. And so when they go into get ice cream, they find broccoli. You have to put the automation directly in someone's path. You have to make prototypes and expect to kill some of them. They won't all be adopted. So you only double down on the ones that do get used.
Yeah, I really want to underline that. So think through, as you're creating your list, thinking through the tool stack that's used not only on your specific team, but across the org can make the odds of something turning from prototype to production AI a lot more likely. So think about that in a preemptive way as you create that list.
Okay, so here what you're looking for are basically in two categories. One is how this automation connects to people and how we maintain the quality of it. So the two things about connecting to people, one is who's going to own it. An automation that doesn't have an owner is like a stray cat. You know, it's going to cause trouble. It's going to dig in people's yards, just basically bother people, or be completely ignored. Then adaptability, the thing needs to be easier to use than it is to ignore. And so then under the column of quality control, you need to be able to either have the automation verify its own output, or you need to have that output verified. And when you do, if it's going to fail, either because it's made an error or because it just stops working entirely, that failure can't be silent. It needs to create some kind of noise in Slack or send someone an email, or basically alert someone that it's going wrong, or that it has stopped working entirely. Once you handle these 4 things, your automation is very unlikely to be abandoned. So, ticking these boxes creates adoption on its own. And therefore, we have built a checklist. When you have something that you've already prioritized using the matrix, then you can do this checklist. Do I have an owner for this? Can I be sure that the output is verified against a rubric, something that is a perfect output? And so I would have the automation compare the outputs. Do I have this designed for adoptability? Is it going to be in the way of someone's current task thinking? How will they start the task? Then the last check is there a way to alert for a failure? Is this thing going to fail silently? And so making sure that you have an owner, verified output, adoptability, and alerts for failures, you're ready to rock. Then it's time to build. And so this is sort of the life cycle. Have you ever seen those life cycles of a butterfly? There's an egg, a larvae, a cocoon, and then it becomes a butterfly. Your prompts and skills might be the egg, the prototypes is the caterpillar, and then a production level scalable automation is your butterfly. And so you cannot just have a butterfly. You have to go through the whole life cycle. And so if no one is using the thing when it's early in the life cycle, do not move on to the next step. Only double down on progressing something if it's being used. That's how you know this is going to get, the word is traction. In the product world, we use the word traction. It's getting traction, and therefore it should be, we should put more effort into it and turn it into a production level automation.
If you wouldn't mind, Nicole, can you unpack kind of what goes into creating production level automation? Things like deterministic inputs, things like company-wide triggers, permissions across teams. I think it would be helpful because I'm sure we've all spoken with individuals, maybe even leaders, who think that AI is a magic wand. And we're here to be on your side and say AI is not a magic wand. It can do incredible things, but you still have to go through all of the normal engineering process in order to build production AI and company-wide rollout. So I would love for you to unpack that a bit, Nicole.
Yeah, and I'll start with a story. So my partner is a really good salesperson. He's a technical person, but he's also a really good salesperson. And when I started my last business, I was learning the art of sales, and I had a couple customers, and I was trying to close the deals. And I asked him, I was like, how many meetings do you have with a potential customer before you close a $20,000 to $100,000 project? And he's like, I don't know, maybe 20 to 30 meetings. And I was like, oh, I thought it was like 2 or 3 meetings. I get it. I just haven't been doing all the things. Okay, so we're seeing this a lot with AI. People think they are going to open Claude, write in a prompt, and now they've produced production level automations, and they can't figure out why it isn't really like happening for everything. But there's a lot that goes into production level AI. First of all, you have to go through this life cycle where you've started with a little prompt, then you've built a prototype, and then you know people are going to use it. So we've already talked about that. But there's also, there is a lot of file structure, for one, any kind of inputs that are going to go into an automation, which might mean a database. It might mean just regular old files and folders with some kind of stack structure nested information where you could point AI to, this file can always be found with this information in it. So there's a predictability there. There is often a set of rules, which in the past used to be written in code, where you would write it in Python or R or something else, depending on whatever you were building. But now we can write it in English and just put it in a .md, which is called Markdown, a Markdown file, which is basically just a text file. But the thinking has to be there. It's still basically the same information that used to be the code that would build a software is now just in English. It is, if this happens, then do this. If this other thing happens, then do this, this, this. All of that still has to be written somewhere, saved, and directed to be looked at the right time, at the right place. We're still making software. We're just writing it in English instead of code. And then we still need to have quality control. So we need to have rubrics and verifications so that the outputs don't end up garbage, because the AI will give you some kind of output, even if it's had to make it up. And when you find that you're getting hallucinations, it might be that you didn't connect the inputs or give it inputs that it can use to make the output you've asked for. You've expected it to make up too much of what it is that you need from it. So you're going to have to do a bit of the legwork in between. And so all of these steps go in. That's the 20 or 30 meetings that I didn't realize were happening to close a big sale. And I think a lot of people maybe don't realize that those are all the steps that go into making a production level AI automation.
Love it. Yes. So when we've all heard of the term AI slop, this is how you avoid AI slop on a team-wide, company-wide level. I've seen companies roll this stuff out too soon, and there's a lot of backtracking that has to happen when things are rolled out in a rushed type of way. And we get clients coming to us often that say, we rolled out AI, we rolled out these organizational skills, et cetera, but no one's using them. We're not seeing the adoption we want, so on and so forth. And that is because this life cycle was not followed. There was not intention there. So really, really, really just want to underline the importance of this. And I know on a personal level how frustrating going through this process can be when you are at capacity, just trying to do your job. You just want the thing to work. And I think setting appropriate expectations with others that any good thing takes time is a good expectation to set. So I want to pause here for some Q&A. I don't see any questions in the chat. If you would prefer to drop your questions in the chat, feel free. Otherwise, feel free to come off the mic and ask any questions you have. But a quote that I've heard from many folks is, my team says that they'll use it being AI or some version of AI, and then they don't. And to me, this goes back to those abandonment layers and why the team is not using this stuff and all of that jazz. So I would love to hear from the group. What questions do you have? What comments do you have before we go into the last section here? Enzo.
Hey, glad to be here. I have one quick question. You touched on something about, like, I love a lot of what you folks are saying in regards of like adoption coming from a place of sort of putting the tool into the workflow. But my question right now is around, for what you're touching on with when it comes to like trusting outputs in general, once you've gotten them to a place, I feel like I'm running into certain feedback loops where people have trouble trusting the outputs. So once you've designed the rubrics and you feel confident that, you know, with the fail safes in place and the quality is like past internal review, how do you get people past that feeling that I can't trust this output? Or if, you know, that feeling's a good thing, what can you give them to be like, here's what you check to understand that you can trust the output?
Yeah, I've got a good answer for that. We internally would always do what we called a team trek on a new product or a new internal product. A team trek ended up being, it's basically user acceptance testing, which anybody in product knows user acceptance testing is. You put the new product in a user's hands, they do the thing, and then they go, yep, it works. And so this is taking people from the company who would be using this new tool and having them spend an hour on a call together as a working call where they try it together and they try to break it. And when they do, great, now you know things you need to fix. And when they can't break it, they all collectively have kind of agreed by default that it's good.
I like that. I've actually done a bit of that internally, and that actually, there was one session that I had building with someone where it touches on the experience element of working with an AI workflow, because we were basically doing like a live bug test, as you're sort of calling out. And at one point, there was a lot happening behind the scenes. And I think the Claude workflow was sort of going for more than 5 minutes. And I told the person on the call, this is why I wanted to run this with you, because I think if it's your first time using this, it might feel like it's paused or stalled, and then you might hit the stop button and then everything sort of comes off the rails. So I think I was working with that person on the call to sort of be like, what can we do in an SOP or a training video to let people know that when things are sort of like supposed to be slow and when you should actually sort of trigger. I think those little handoff moments I'm trying to get better at, but yeah, I'm hoping.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like writing instructions to have a new person drive to your house. You know, before Google Maps, you would give instructions like, you know, if you see a big barn, you've gone too far. You know, so give people a way to know that it's gone wrong. If you and you can also put something in the instructions of like internal data of how you build the AI, where that's how you build a non-silent failure, where it will say, you know, I actually cannot do this. Instead of giving a fake answer, it will say, answer is not possible for me right now, or something like that, or, you know, a code word. And so those are very blatant and not always obvious to be that blatant, but being that blatant can be very helpful for people and for the AI and the people AI conversation.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great question, Enzo. What other questions are there? No other questions, huh? Cool. All right. The other thought I had as you were speaking, Enzo, is really thinking about what people already use and having that trigger maybe not be in Claude, right? So like having that trigger be in Slack, for example, or someone has a UI dashboard that they click run on that particular task, and then all of a sudden the output gets emailed to them or something. So then they're not sitting there waiting for the Claude you know, wheel of death, and rather they can just have something appear when it is ready. So it sounds like this person was like comfortable with Claude, but when you think about it on a company-wide level, those types of considerations should certainly be considered.
No, I love that. And that's why I really like live testing as well. I think there was an even sort of situation where it was obvious to me to have sort of desktop alerts enabled for the Claude app, because then I'd know to go back when they needed my input. But I found the majority of people didn't even have those enabled, right? So I think even baking that into like a pre-flight checklist of being like, make sure you have notifications. It should take this long. If you see this break, then restart. I think, yeah, that's all very interesting stuff to take in.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest lies we've been told in the AI industry right now is that AI is easy and there's not a learning curve. These are new tools and they are changing dramatically. Like so this whole presentation was developed with Claude Design and a lot of love from both myself and Nicole. And when I used Claude Design 4 months ago, almost to the day that it launched, it was kind of bad and it took a lot of work. And now you have design systems, you have templates that you can use, and it can produce slides faster than I've ever been able to produce slides in my entire career, which is really, really cool. So I want to walk through this this simple build that we've done for that meeting notes automation. So we went through each of these steps to figure out what is the trigger. It's going, the automation is going to read the call notes from my inbox. The old way of doing that was about 5 minutes. And then pulling out the commitments from the transcript, that took about 2 minutes. Updating the to-do list, and this can be in Notion, it can be in a CRM, it can be wherever you want it to be. That took about 2 minutes. And then writing the draft and follow-up to participants took about 2 minutes. So something that used to take about 11 minutes, and I would have anywhere from 10 to 20 meetings a day. Something that used to take about 11 minutes now is done instantly for me. And all I have to do is review the email and click send. So that is a type of high touch automation that is pretty easy to develop on an individual level, that has really, really high reward. But it took patience for me to sit down and think through, what is the trigger? What are the commitments? All of that jazz. And Nicole is so good at really drilling down in this whenever we're thinking about big automation builds, much bigger than things like the meeting summary. But she'll sit there and interview me and say, okay, what is the trigger? What are the inputs? What is the output? Do we need a human in the loop? Is there risk to the brand of having this done autonomously? Do we feel like the output is reliable enough and there are enough deterministic inputs that we don't necessarily need a human in the loop? So become really, really familiar as you are working with others on your team to coach them on their automations. You're thinking about building your own automations, of going through each of those 4 steps. Anything to add here, Nicole?
Yeah, I mean, in reality, we also think really hard about the costs of the AI. So, what token costs you're dealing with, to try to be efficient around that. Any kind of database usage, if you're going to be processing a lot of database data, or the latency, like how long is it going to take for this thing to run? Because sometimes that ends up costing a lot or blocking other things from getting done. If it's something that is going to run every hour and it takes an hour, it's just going to be running all the time. So those are the just sort of very logical, but sometimes overlooked realities to consider as well.
Cool. I also want to say that I think a lot of people avoid simple automations because they don't seem that fancy. But we just saw a task that used to take me about 10 to 11 minutes per meeting, 10 times a day, can now be done in a matter of seconds. And it's very simple. And I didn't let the fact that it doesn't have crazy integrations. I didn't try to handle all edge cases of, well, this client has Zoom transcripts and this other client uses Fathom or whatever. I start simple with that very first attempt, and just recognize that there's versioning evolved in this process. So I've shown you V1 very easily today. I could create V2, V3, so on and so forth, and that's the goal here.
And then to kind of add on top of that, once you start having some of these, you're thinking about like, okay, we built that matrix of like what needs our attention now. When you start to have prototypes that are now in versions, they will also get added to the matrix, so that sometimes doing version 1, 2, 3, 4 of the same thing is more important than touching anything else. And sometimes getting to version 1 and then letting it ride for a while and working on some other things then ends up being important. So consider those versions as you're considering your prototype or your prioritization list.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a slide I made that I don't love, but I'm going to put it up here anyway. So there's an old meme, 3 pictures of the same thing. It was like what you think AI is, what AI actually is, and what automations actually are. So this is what I was talking about, that folks sometimes think you can just write something into a Claude chat and it's going to be able to handle this in an automatic way without any hallucinations. The reality is there is a lot of file structure involved. There's a lot of input files, and they all have to be pointed to, like this, use this specific file plus this specific file to create an output that looks just like this specific file, that kind of thing. And then what the automation actually is what we talked about, that life cycle. You've got to brainstorm it, you've got to prioritize it, then prototype it, build it, do the UAT. So you do that team track, so people are adopting it, and then it ends up in production after a couple of iterations of testing. And every step there is a go, no go decision where the thing may not make it to the next step. You may decide this is not worth us putting our energy into. It's too risky, it's too slow, it's too whatever. Let's put our energy elsewhere.
Love it. Yeah. Again, AI is not magic. It's file structure, it's systems-based thinking. That's super, super important. So I want to show you all the tool that we built for you. You all can access it right now at tools.denova.ai/prioritization. And as you go through this, you can change what these projects are. You can change the impact, you can change the effort. And then as we shared, all 4 of these checkboxes need to be done in order for the status to be ready to ship. If those 4 checkboxes are not done, it is not ready to ship. And you will see what this plot looks like. You'll see a summary of all of your ideas, and then you can download this list. So you can take that, build on it, share it with your team. So I wanted to show you all what the tool we are providing is. We've used this on our side. It didn't look as fancy, our version, but I made a fancy version for everyone else.
I hadn't seen the fancy version. That is awesome, Travis. Good job.
Yeah.
You used the ugly version.
Yes. Yeah. We use the spreadsheet, but this fancy version I like better. So before we wrap up, are any other thoughts, questions? Go ahead and give an emoji if you learned something new, if you feel like this expanded your worldview of AI. You have something to take back to your team. Great. Awesome. Awesome. Sweet. So, okay, we wanna just quickly wrap up here. Nicole, walk us through what a prototype should and should not do.
All right, a prototype should be the thing that is really common and repeatable. It should produce an output that a person looks at directly instead of just sending it into the breeze. It should run on real data, and if it breaks, it should notify somebody. And then the person who runs it should totally know what it's doing. A prototype should definitely not worry about covering everything. Prototype should not just randomly send stuff to people without review, because yikes, that's scary. a prototype should not require tools that no one knows how to use. It should not depend on a whole big data cleanup project that no one's ever done, because this happens all the time. People are like, oh, well, just tell the AI to find the data. It does not find the data. It should not be unowned while it is operable. If somebody is no longer going to own it, turn it off.
Yes, great advice. So those are the takeaways. Next step, go through that tool. I just dropped it in the chat. You'll see it on the next slide, and list out every workflow. You can do this individually to start, but I strongly encourage you to do this across your entire team. Plot all of those tasks on an impact versus effort matrix, and then don't forget about that abandonment prevention checklist. Quickly recapping DayNova, we map AI strategy, build AI automations, and embed AI on teams through training. Think of us as your outsourced AI team, from head of AI all the way down to forward deployed engineers. We are meant to be an extension of your team, your business. There's a lot of expertise that goes into building production grade AI, and that's what we are focused on, so we can up-level everyone's skills. Feel free to snag this QR code, go to the link I've dropped in the chat or on this slide, and you can access that tool. We have about 5 minutes left. Nicole and I are happy to stick around to answer any questions. But with that, anyone who wants to drop or needs a drop, thank you so much for coming. It means a lot that you are supporting DayNova, and I hope you learned something through this. Come to our next one.